Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Slide by Slide. We wait a few more minutes to let everyone join. Great to see you all. Okay, we'll be starting shortly. Thank you all for your attendance today. We know it's full of summer and it's great to have you here. Not only we are working today. So hello again. Welcome to our webinar, Slide by Slide, How to Engage Your Audience in Presentations. My name is Olga Lany and I'm the PR manager at AdMind. So before we move on, I will tell you a bit about AdMind. We are the largest branding agency in Central Europe. And we have a global presence in operating in 70 markets and collaborate with leading companies, including several from Fortune 500 list. And we specialize in branding. And we think that presentations play a crucial role in branding. And they are often the first point of contact with the clients, with stakeholders or employees. So they need to effectively communicate brand's message and values, and that's why we are having this meeting today. So let me remind everyone that you can submit your questions in the Q&A section at any time, and we try to answer them in the last part of this session. Oh, there's really quite plenty of you, so very happy to see you all. For those who just joined, we are going to focus on how to make your presentations more engaging and effective. We have some fantastic insights to share, so stay tuned. Okay, I think we can move on. We have two fantastic speakers today, Maciej Kałuża and Maciek Furtak. They are my colleagues from AdMind. Could you guys please say a few words about yourselves and your expertise in presentations?
I think that I am first in the alphabet, so don't mind, Maciek. I will start. I'm Maciek Furtak. I'm a project manager and team manager in PowerPoint team. I have this honor and a privilege to manage such a wonderful team of very skilled designers, presentation designers, but also editors. And well, it's great to have you. And together with me today is my fantastic colleague, Maciej Kałuża. Maciek.
Yeah, good day, good evening to those of you who are from another time zone, or good morning. It's great to be here with you. My name is Maciej Kałuża. I'm a presentation designer. More frequently nowadays, I'm also a presentation design trainer for PowerPoint. And I'm also an academic, a practicing academic. I teach at the university where we use lots and lots of PowerPoint. So it's a perfect combination, I think, of knowledge and skills and experiences that I'd like to share with you today.
So the fun fact is that they are not the only Maćki we have at AdMind. So we seem to have a special talent for attracting great maćki. So
I'm blushing.
so let's move a little bit. And at the beginning, we'd like to engage with you a bit more. And we're about to launch a quick poll. And we would like to know how often you create presentations in your professional roles. Wawrzek, can you please share the poll? So it's completely anonymous. It's more or less for fun and just to know you a bit better. So how often do you prepare presentations? Please choose your answers and we'll see the results in a minute. Are you ready? 3 more seconds. Okay, Wawrzek, can you share the results? Okay, what do we see here? Okay, it seems like you create presentations quite often. It's glad to hear. And hopefully you will find some valuable insights today. So thank you for the results. And let's move on. So I'd like to start with Maciek Furtak. What do you think? Does the purpose of the presentation matter? Should the design, content, or the approach differ based on whether the presentations for sales, training, reporting, or education, or any other purpose?
I would answer with probably the most hated answer, which is yes and no.
Great.
Yes, because definitely there are various purposes of presentations, and I also think that you need to know your target audience. You need to know what do you want to achieve with your presentation. But I do also think, and that's something that definitely will be explained by Maciek later during that webinar, I do think that there are some common mistakes. I often struggle with them. And I must say that really those tips which Maciek will share with you today really helped me. And no, because I do think that those mistakes can happen and they are the same, like important, no matter if it's like C-level presentation or your internal deck for maybe 2 people because you have an internal meeting.
So let's dive deeper and see those common mistakes or the solutions. Maciej, the other Maciek, I hope you share some basic rules, some tips and tricks on the techniques for visual communication or effective storytelling. So I'll hand now to you.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity that I have a PowerPoint presentation ready for that. And let me just share my screen and show you several issues I've been coping myself with quite frequently. I hope you can see my screen now. So the first question we need to ask ourselves in design of presentation is the question about one of my favorite words, which is usability, which means we use presentations for certain purposes. We design presentations not only for the presentations to look nice, but to have a function. So the first question I need to ask myself when I'm talking to the client is, what is the purpose of the presentation? What do you want to achieve, actually? It's an easy question for me because I'm a philosopher, and I love to ask the most fundamental questions. And the most fundamental.
Sometimes it's better not to ask these questions to Maciej.
Yeah, but what's the purpose? Why do you need a presentation? And when you know why you need a presentation, the second question you need to answer is, will the people understand what you're actually trying to say to them? So this is the first thing I want to focus on. And in case of making presentations, I think what we are actually sometimes making, I don't want to say we are making a mistake or stigmatize saying, well, you're doing this wrong and we are doing this in a good way. We need to understand how brain works when we design. And one of the things that I really like to tell people regarding presentations is that we need visuals in presentations. PowerPoint is all about visualization of data. And people very frequently come to me and use PowerPoint presentations as if it was just another name for a Word file they were using before. So the first thing I want to emphasize is that combining information, textual information with visual data will help you get more from your presentation, whatever the purpose is. And if the purpose for me as an academic is to help students remember stuff, I will do what you can see here is a double coding scheme. We tend to analyze in communication research. And it turns out that people will simply remember more from the presentation when the presentation with the text and what you say during the presentation is accompanied by visual data. And there is a lot of research supporting this. And it turns out that if you just present the information in an audio way to people, just say something or ask people to read something, the retention rate of the information is around 10%. It varies from data to data and from research to research. But if you combine information with an image, people remember more. And the question is why? Well, basically, our brain is an image processor. And we have, anthropologically speaking, been using our brain for much, much longer periods of time in order to capture visual information. Text and audio, language communication is a more underdeveloped, so to say, part of our communication in comparison to images. So we remember everything by images. A lot of information we gather from images. This is why we need to support our information. But enough of theory, let me just show you a very, very simple example. We have a teamwork training. And the first thing you will instantly try to do when designing slides is you will ask the AI prompt to generate quickly something. And this is what will happen. You will get something like here, an icon of teamwork and some short information. This is good. I mean, this is okay. This is much better than just sending people an email. Maybe they will remember more just because of the existence of the pictogram here. But what I want to do further on, and what I recommend doing, is to combine the message that you are trying to send out to people with the image. For example, if this is a teamwork training, show people working together. And what better an example of teamwork can there be than people rowing? I don't know if you have an experience of doing kayaking or rowing. You have to do it together. It just doesn't work when everyone does any other thing. And it's much more possible that people will simply remember this slide because there is an integration relating to my theory, which I showed you before, between the image and the text. And this is what we need to find out. We need to design slides that integrate image with text. So as you can see on this example, I'm using this example from my university, not to promote my university, which is of course highly recommended, but in order to show you something that a lot of people told me that actually worked, what I did was I just combined an image with text. It was about interdisciplinary studies. And people remember that, people like that, because it's not a very, very, clear, simple thing to show. People usually show during the promotion presentations, students signing in, and everyone uses them. So we have to remember this context, that you will be using presentations in the context where other people are using presentations. And we are overloaded with images. So in order to make impact on the audience, you need to combine content with images, with visual information. That is deeper, that is more interesting, that is more impactful to your audience to do it. So what are we doing wrong? Where are we making a mistake? I think the most common mistake I see is this. So this is what we are doing. We are in a hurry and we have stress before the presentation. Everyone is always afraid of presenting because there will be audience, people will be looking at me. And in order to run away from that, just put everything we want to say on the slide. And to some extent, this is not going to work because people, I don't know how many of you have already started doing that, but probably some of the people stopped listening to me now. Now, this is what we are doing wrong. I want to focus the attention on me, and I want to support what I say with my presentation. When I show people everything I want to say on my presentation, they will just start reading it. And I can assure you, they will read much faster when I'm speaking. So there will be a communication gap between me and my audience when I'm just presenting everything to them in a textual way. So how to avoid that? Well, think of what you want to say. Prepare yourself, prepare your speech. Make your speech, make your presentation outside the PowerPoint presentation. Do something like that. Remove the content. Focus on learning this content, or it will be much more natural when you will be just speaking out of your head. You have just some bullet points. And what you are presenting is just a conclusion, summary of what you are doing. If you can't remember anything about that, there's a very, very simple, it's in almost every PowerPoint guide I know. Remember the 6x6 rule. Once one idea per slide. Don't use more than 6 bullet points. Keep the bullets short on each slide and just tell the story around them to emphasize what we are going through. So people will not focus just on reading it. It's very short information. It's just to sum up or summarize some information from your speech. And you will be supporting what you are trying to say by your presentation, not the other way around. You will focus your attention on you as a presenter, as a person who knows something, and just support it when there is need to be visual. You can do it. When it's need to explain something, you can focus the attention on yourself. So design is about things like that. It's about understanding how to communicate something to people, not just make things more beautiful and colorful. So this slide can look like that when we integrate short bullet points. This is just an example of a 6x6 rule. We have an image. It's just a stock image, and we can go deeper and make it more impactful. But it's just an example of how much content there should be in the slide. A very, very frequently asked question by teachers, by scholars, by academics, and by business people trying to make good presentations. This is enough. And the other thing is, when you have limited the amount of text on your presentations, you can make the font bigger. And when you make the font bigger, you gain more because people will actually be able to read what you're trying to present without you guessing whether font 14 is readable by anyone in your audience. Make it big and make it short and keep it short, and it will work. It should work. And always remember that you are presenting somewhere. So when you just focus on that, it's just a slide. But think of the slide in the context that you are the presenter. You are presenting it somewhere. You can present it like we are doing it now on the webinar, and you have to understand how your role will change when you are doing that. For example, I'm sitting now, and it changes the way I communicate with you. If I'm standing, I need to know, and I need to design myself, and I need to design my slides so that it will be more communicative. For example, I can design whether I will stand on the left side or on the right side. And if I know where I will be presenting, let me hide that. I will have impact on how I will present, because if there is a wall in the room next to the presenter, I will be interacting with what I'm trying to show. So maybe I will need to redesign my slides just because of the room that I'm presenting in. One thinks about that when we are just, generating slides quickly.
That's true. I totally agree.
But it's a good guide to remember. Remember that you are talking to people, and if it's in a conference room, they will be sitting somewhere. They need to see the presentation, and you need to know how to approach showing something to the people in an easy and communicative way. So I think for the beginners, that's it.
So let me interrupt for a second. So do you think that it's a question to both of you guys? Do you think that presentation can exist without a presenter, or how to balance that?
Again, it depends.
Of course.
There are presentations which are meant to be, for instance, shared with people globally. It is some sort of a guideline, it is some sort of a handbook or something like that. But this is, I think, kind of a different thing. Even though we are doing that in PowerPoint, it doesn't have necessarily to be called a presentation. But I do think that, okay, you are presenting the presentation. You are, let's say, the main core of it, the main core of this whole meeting. But the thing is that, and that's how I see a good presentation, that even though there is no presenter, I can clearly see like the whole structure. Even though there are like, I don't know, 2 sentences per slide or something like that, I still see the key messaging, and I still can see the flow and the storytelling around it. And that's what I call a good presentation. Maciek, I don't know, I think that you made probably dozens of them, a lot more than I did. You might have another thinking of that, but maybe not.
Well, of course, we can use the very, very safe answer and say it depends. But I always prefer to think that if things go wrong, I can manage without the PowerPoint presentation on my own. When there is electricity failure or something like that, I can still provide people with information on my own without the presentation, and I can just send them the supporting materials and resources later on. But it really helps sometimes to show people something. And presentations can contain videos and animations, and we can show a very, very difficult process step by step to support the understanding of the content. And we can make tricks like the one I want to talk about in more detail in a minute, like telling a story and cut. Also, there's one more thing I really need to say. Making a presentation is good for the audience, but it is also good for the presenter.
So what's our consensus, Maciej? That there is no presentation, or there should be a presentation without the presenter, and there should be a presenter without the presentation, right? Okay,
Sounds very, very
for
dialectical.
me it's fine. I agree.
That's fine for me also. So before Maciej, you will move on to the next chapter of your story. I like to have another quick poll for you. And this time we'd like to know what purposes you most frequently use presentations for. Again, this poll is completely anonymous. Okay, thank you, Wawrzek, for displaying the question. What do you use presentations for? And you have some, we forgot about the other answer. So if there is other, I don't know, you should choose the one from the list anyway, or don't answer. It's just for fun, as I said before, and just to get to know you better. So yeah, please choose your answers, and we all see the results in a minute. Okay, 3 more seconds, and Wawrzek, please share the results and we'll see. Okay, so most of you are using presentations for marketing or sales purposes, and for internal communication as well. Thank you for your input. More than one use, of course. Probably some of you use presentations for different purposes, but we just wanted to know which is the basic one for you. Okay, Maciek, you can continue. And yes, what about the story?
But before we go to the story, I just wanted to say that what we actually did now also helps the audience and makes the presentation more impactful. Because when you ask questions, when you make surveys, when you engage the audience, when you ask them questions and relate to these answers, like a lot of you do marketing and sales presentations, this is also something that raises the retention rate of your presentation. And one of the most favorite things nowadays that apart from PowerPoint really makes a wonderful experience is, for example, an application like Kahoot, which you can upload and add a QR code to your presentation. People can vote in the classroom, for example.
Or do the Zoom polls,
yes,
as we did.
Yes, or do the Zoom polls. And it also is a great way of communicating with your audience, asking questions, asking them to answer questions. So be sure to remember about that. Now, coming to the story, I think this is something which is immensely popular nowadays. Storytelling is everywhere, and everyone says, well, create a story, make a story. And it created a very, very dangerous situation where something is fashionable, so everyone talks about it. But when you go deep to the core of why and what it actually means to do the storytelling, it turns out that there are very many theories and distinctions. And in relation to PowerPoint, what we actually want to do is to think of the whole experience as a story. Now, when we create presentations, we usually use our brand's template. We have a template for PowerPoint which is pre-designed. And again, this is not a mistake. We just do it accordingly to how our template was designed. So there's an agenda, so we make an agenda. There is a divider, so then we do a divider. And somehow we lose the moment where we should stop and think what we are actually going to say and whether this is a story. So write the story first, and the story should have a beginning. Hi, I'm Maciek. I'm going to tell you now a story about this and that. And your product, what you're trying to sell, what you're trying to advertise, your service, is the hero of your presentation, which you are already talking about. So this is something to engage your audience in. I'm going to tell you a story, and we are going to tell the story. This is the second moment. This is a rising action, because there is a problem. How many of you have this problem at home with this service? How many of you do use Wi-Fi and it creates so many problems with connection and so on and so on? And we engage somehow, we make the rising action, which means we relate somehow to your own personal experience with this product, with this service. And this is the moment where you put most attention to the climax moment. We provide a solution. And we show how the problem is confronted and resolved by our product, by our service, by the new medicine we are creating, or by my new research that I'm trying to show on the conference. But this is not the end. We show the aftermath. In the following action step, we show what possible obstacles might there still be to overcome, and what questions may arise from usage of this service, and how are we prepared to develop it further and further on. And then we go to the resolution. So this is what we propose, this is who we are, and this is where we show all the contact information and everything else. We just need to create a story, and when it is a story, people will remember it. A lot of you probably have seen story cubes. It's a great tool. You just roll the dice and create a story. Well, no one, without preparation, without mnemotechniques, will remember several images when they are just quickly shown one by one on consequence slides. And this is what you are doing all the time. You are showing people atomized information without glue, without stories, without linkage, how this relates to the another one, without consequentialist relations between them. So when I just do the presentation without thinking about the story, I do this. But when I tell people, once upon the time there was this guy and he has found this magic sword, and with this magic sword he realized now he can defeat the dragon, and he went to the castle and he fought an enormous battle and he managed to slay the dragon. I don't like the stories where dragons are slain, but let's
we are based in Krakow, so actually we have one famous dragon here.
This is our context, dragon. And then we have the resolution, and he managed, the knight rescued the princess, and they lived happily ever after. This is a story. Everyone will remember it when we link elements together. So this is what we are actually trying to do when someone asks us for a presentation. We ask for a narration. How will we develop from one stage to another in order to make it more of a story?
Okay, the next step, the data visualization. I heard that it is quite difficult for everyone. So what are your tricks for that?
Yeah, I've seen it happen all the time, and I will recommend a TED during this presentation where you can support what I know and I learned from this TED presentation quite a lot myself. So I will be relating to it. We need data. We are living in a data-driven environment, data-driven culture. Our companies may advertise themselves as data-driven, and sometimes we need to present data. And when we do, it turns out that we have a lot of data. And without thinking, we just present everything. Like with text, we present everything we want to say. And the same thing might happen with data. We feel secure when we show all the data, but when we show all the data, we might have a problem with helping people understand the data that we are trying to show. And this usually looks like this. So this is from a great TEDx talk by Dominik Bohan. This is his example.
Have you ever seen an example like that in real life?
I probably even did once. Not something I'm proud of, but happens.
Yeah, we sometimes think, let's impress people with how much data.
But I think, Maciej, that's because we are owners of that data, and we are always proud of that data, and we do think that the type of enjoyment and pride we have with that is the same for everyone. And I found it a very tricky way.
Yeah, it's look how much data we've gathered.
You cannot see anything.
You can't see anything.
Chart.
You can't see anything. The three-dimensional charts in a flat presentations will just not tell the story. So this is what we are actually experiencing. This is what we are getting. And the first question I'm asking the client when I see something like this is, what are you trying to say? What is the key point of this? Or whether, if there are more points, which points are crucial for you in this presentation? And then when we start working. And when we start working, we need some research. And we need to know how people actually process data. And fortunately, we are also doing psychological and experimental research on data analysis. And there was Cleveland and McGill's experiment where they actually tried to answer the question, what kind of data visualization is best for data? And they showed people, they have shown people different kinds of data. And, you know, everyone can turn on PowerPoint and see how many data visualization options we have. And so they asked whether this data is clear when it's shown as a donut chart, with colors, with angles, with curvature, directions, and all this. And what happened? When they saw the results, it turned out that all this variety of different forms of data visualization, the most effective ones are positioned on a scale and length. So these are the most obvious.
That's really quite interesting because I tried to, many times I tried to use very complicated shapes of the charts to maybe make it look more focusing, or I don't know, but attractive, but it didn't work out probably.
So we need to ask people what they understand and then create data visualization in such a way that they actually understand our data. And we have research for that. We can download the article and read how many people did understand this and that. We are not very good at angles, for example. And let me show you an example. We have a pie chart here. Pie charts are nice because they show pie elements of a whole. And everyone thinks, well, if it's a whole, that's great. But just looking at this pie chart, can you actually see which part of the pie is bigger?
I'm trying to focus, but no chance.
Well, let's do a very, very simple thing. And I will tell you that what I will present now is the same data. This is the same data. It's absolutely clear that the data in a linear form is understandable. Everyone who sees it will understand which part of the pie is the biggest part. Hardly anyone understands it when it's presented the other way, without additional data added to the pie chart. So this is what we are trying to achieve, to simplify the way we communicate data to our audience. And once we have done that, we are designers and we can't just, do data more visual. We need to do it more engaging, more communicative. So we try to add something to the data. For example, if we have a poll related to gender, how many people in the poll said they think of themselves as males and how many think of themselves as females. We can do a very simple trick like this, and it becomes more infographical. And we suddenly don't, as long as people understand symbols and know these symbols, we don't really need more data description to that. It's just a very, very quick way to change some data into some more meaningful data, more communicative data. It's just an example. But let's play on. So when I have this data in a visual form, almost everyone will understand this data when it's just presented like that here. And we use brand colors, we are consistent with our brand, which is also good. But when we go on, we might think, well, everyone else shows the data like that. Can we somehow stand out to make it more impactful? Yes, we can. We can use, for example, pictograms of male and a female. And we can make the sizes of these pictograms accordingly and compare them to the length of the lines we had and create a very simple infographic like that. It's perfectly clear now where is the majority. But what happens is we understand that this data refers to humans. It's not just a line, a bar, something abstract. It's about people. And we can see, this is actually what I manually did. I made 100 pictograms on one slide. If I ungroup it, the whole presentation will crash. But it shows the whole in a much more clear and understandable way than just by angles in a pie chart. So we can do something like that with the data we have with our audiences. Why are we doing that? Just two examples I really, really love. One is from 19th century. Data can change the world. And proper visualization of data made historical impact. Florence Nightingale measured the amount of people that died in hospitals during the Crimean War, and she created this infographic. And with this infographic, she managed to convince people that most of the people that died during the war do not die because of wounds on the battlefield. They die because of very, very poor hospital care. And this is how nursery, the whole idea of modern nursery began, by an infographic where she managed to show people, this is the blue parts of the chart, that most of the people during the war do not die on the battlefield. They die after in the hospital because they are not properly taken care of. And regarding data visualization, and this is absolutely my favorite example, sometimes we need to show people how data impacts reality. So if we want to convince people that they are using too much plastic, like in this example from New York, the data visualization shows plastic bottles, and they measured how much space the plastic bottles would take, all the plastic bottles thrown away by New Yorkers in the period of 10 years. And they created a mountain out of these plastic bottles. Everyone will remember this image, and it is driven by data, and it is actually motivated by analytical data and research gathered by the researchers.
Yeah, they're great examples. I actually could bet that you'll find some really interesting ones. So you talked a bit about pictograms. So go and explore.
Because when we are designing a presentation or a template, we usually create pictograms, and we advise during trainings people to use pictograms next to the text. If you don't have images or you can't find images to everything, just use pictograms. And the question, again, I'm a philosopher, is why would we need pictograms to support our text? And something wrong happened to the slide. But
It happens.
it happens
Even
to the
for
designers.
professionals.
Yeah, there's always some room for improvement. But what actually I wanted to show you is that there is research on the use of pictograms, and they made a lot of research on using pictograms, where pictograms are very important, which is healthcare. So adding pictograms to, for example, to medical stuff like medicines that people need to read instructions, raised significantly the level of understanding of patients that need to take proper medications in proper times and things like that. So we remember more data when it is accompanied by pictograms. And they made quite a lot of research quite recently on supporting this idea. And it works the same way in your PowerPoint presentations. So when we design presentations, we also design pictograms. We also design visual information that can accompany your text during your presentation, so that the text is not alone. And if you need to show a lot of data, if you need to show a lot of information, you can always support this information with pictograms that relate to the content of your presentation.
Yeah, thanks for that. So let's move on to animations. It's sometimes we feel that it's better to do a lot of different things happening on our screens. So
And
what do you
that's
think?
very tricky.
Yes,
That's very tricky. And
I can imagine.
an anecdote, but that's something that I read like many years ago in some sort of a snowboarding or skiing guideline or skiing handbook about how to ski, how to snowboard, and what tricks can be done. And there was one very important sentence that the easiest trick, but done in a nice way, is way better than the most complicated one, but when you are landing on your head. And actually, I do think that you can transport that to animations. Not doing them or doing them, but in a very nice and neat way is way better than trying to make a movie using PowerPoint.
It's very teasing because a lot of tools which we use for creating presentations have loads of features that are really teasing to use. So yeah, what about that?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. In my experience, what I do usually when I get a client's file that was pre-designed by my client is I remove a lot of animations from the file instead of adding new ones. Because everything should have a function. Design is about usability, it's about function. What does motion mean in your presentation? If you need motion in order to communicate something. So I use animations. A lot of designers use animations, but we need to understand why we are using animations. So animations can make them more engaging, more impactful, more fun. And they also help you to filter out information and sort the information in a specific way when the process is complicated. But it is crucial to understand when animation is helpful and when it is not, because overusing animations, like what is happening now with my slide, just creates chaos. A lot of motion moving from one space to another will distract your audience and will not make any point. The second thing is, and this is the question I always ask my client, where will you present it? Because animations with motion can be very choppy when you're presenting them on Teams. So test that before you're presenting and avoid using too many motion animations when your presentation is purely for online purposes. This is just like
that's a great tip, actually.
Rough sketchbook of what to start with. And when you are done with that, you might use animations to emphasize. So if you have data, we've been talking already about data, and you want to take out some part of the data, you can use animation just to support. Now I will be talking about this, and it will help the audience to understand that this is a part of some bigger thing. So my favorite usage of that animations is to show the relation between part and whole. And this is how I usually animate slides. And you can also use animation in order to create this glue for the story. So I made a poll with my students. Has anything changed in your life because you made this 21-day challenge? We had an environmental sustainability challenge. And some of the students said nothing changed in my life, and some of the students said, yeah, something changed in my life. Great. So going on, I wanted to create a linkage between this slide and another one. And I did something like that. It's very, very simple. It's called Morph, and it's just a transition between slides, but it instantly creates a linkage between data and details of the data that I will be talking about during this presentation, which I actually did in last June. And another simple trick, I'm just showing an example here of how it works. And another example of my favorite usage, this is again a simple transition of Morph. I have something complex. I want to explain something complex to my audience. And René Descartes understood already in 17th century that when something is complex, you have to divide it into simpler parts. And he wrote about it in his philosophy. So do the same. If you have to present something complex, chop it into understandable pieces. And again, you can use animations to show how these parts relate to the bigger picture. So now we will be talking about the relation between the image and the human eye. And once we understand this relation, we can go on and on and on. So from the broad picture, from the broad horizon to the specific detail. Again, just one more click made a very, very nice transition from one to another. It's also very important to understand that with animation, you can control information flow. And instead of showing people everything, we have 7 phases of putting a new product to the market. We are starting with phase 1, describing phase 1, then proceeding to phase 2, then talking about phase 3, phase 4. Everyone who sees that sees the timeline and understands how many points there are before, but doesn't go ahead as if when I show everything with some content, with some descriptions, people will instantly start reading and lose communication with the presenter. So in order to control this information flow, I can do a very, very simple animation of going from one to another, as long as I can control it during the presentation. If I have something with me that will help me change this animation during the presentation without going through the whole room or asking another person to click each time I want to proceed.
Thanks.
Thank you, Maciej.
Thanks for all the tricks you shared.
It's my everyday job, so it's just like talking about what I do every day.
So great to have you. I just remind everyone that you can submit your questions in the Q&A section at any time during the meeting, and we'll try to address them at the end of this session. We have a few quite interesting. I already see them, so we'll get to them. So I have a tricky questions after your presentation. Again, to both of you. So what's an ideal presentation?
I would say the personal one.
Mm-hmm.
Really, like the owner is the owner of the presentation, and it's really like there are some ways I will talk about them later to help, but let's say, the genesis of the presentation is still on the speaker, and that should be there always.
What about you, other Maciej?
Yeah, I think if you open LinkedIn and type PowerPoint presentations, you will instantly find people telling you that there is a scheme of doing great sales presentations. You just follow them step by step and it works. I don't think it is really true because we are selling different things to different people. So presentation is about understanding what you're trying to present and more importantly, whom you're trying to present it. Who is your audience? Do they have experience in data analysis? Will they be able to understand what you are talking about or not? Do you need a glossary of difficult terms that will be displayed during the presentation if you use a difficult word? If you are doing a marketing presentation, not everyone really knows what is CTR and other marketing stuff. So be sure to remember that. Be sure to remember that. Be user-friendly when you're presenting.
I also think that if there is a spectrum of super complex text-heavy presentation and super less text-heavy presentation with just a couple of words, I would position that ideal scenario towards the simpler. I mean, if you are struggling to find your way, I do think the simpler way will be better and safe, really.
Less is
more.
So let's just simulate a scenario where I am a client in need of assistance with preparing my presentations. So what steps should I take? What materials I should provide to get the best help? So Maciej, what should I provide to ensure a smooth and effective process if I'm going to use a professional help with my presentations?
Actually, I do hear that question quite often because as Maciej mentioned at the very beginning of the webinar, he's a trainer. We do provide that service to our clients because in the end, we really want to ensure that people can do good stuff on their own. It's not only about, let's say, helping as a designers, but also training and giving you that freedom that no matter if you're in a rush, you maybe procrastinated that presentation for a while. We want to ensure that you have tools and you have knowledge to do so. So after those trainings, which Maciej conducts quite often, there is this question of what do I need to use your service? Because I do understand that there might be some concerns. People quite often think that they need to be very well prepared. They need to send a final material. They need to send even designs or maybe some ideas because otherwise they won't achieve something that would be a great outcome for them. And I think otherwise. So I would start with all those things. To you, Olga, what do you actually don't need to use such services? And where I would start is that the first thing that you don't really need are PowerPoint skills. So basically, people often try to, design some stuff to put those texts, in different layouts. Like we are trained also to understand the text and to distribute text and to understand the flow. So you don't really have to go through the presentation and design something. I mean, the thing which is on the left-hand side, so just a blank presentation with some text distributed on the slide, so we see what should go where, it's totally fine. We can, as you see on the right-hand side, add some illustrations, make the text looking nicer, add some even titles, stuff like that. Make the structure, it's totally fine. Don't be concerned that, you should guide us because otherwise you won't know what to do. there are also other questions actually, because okay, PowerPoint slides, okay, but do I need pre-designed slides? I mean, people have various different ways of preparing themselves. Some people actually go through PowerPoint, add text to slides. Here is slide 2. Here I talk about the mission. Here's slide 3. I talk about the purpose, for instance. But people always ask me like, can I provide like my brief some other way? And actually, yes, it's totally fine. You can do so. I received briefs in various ways. It was a Word document, a picture or a scan of a piece of paper with some sketches because it was some sort of an infographic. I don't know, even a picture of a whiteboard after some meeting. It's totally fine. I mean, I do think that we should provide as much comprehensive service as we can, because otherwise, what's the purpose of the service? So actually, on the left-hand side, you see that's something that probably Maciej thought about while talking about a lot of data. It is an Excel file. It still contains everything. I mean, it solves the purpose, maybe at some point. But on the right-hand side, you will see something that we can create out of it. I mean, nice, kind of like a website vibe of a dashboard with emphasis on data. I mean, on some accents where it is more important, different ways of visualizing them. I mean, basically, all these different ways you can think of, and all these different ways that Maciej told you about.
So are you actually able to get the most important information from the files like that? And
it depends. I mean, of course, the more input we have from the client, the better. Especially in the third point, which is the finalized copy, because you might not even have the finalized copy. You might have a website, you might have an article, a press release, some other brochure. And that's why, that's something I told you at the very beginning, that we not only have designers, but we also have copywriters, because we do understand that that's what the comprehensive service means, that we are also able to go through your materials and provide you with ideas, collaborate with you on your presentation. Mm-hmm. And again, we can go through, we can have a workshop, we can have a discussion, and then we can create something to help you during your meeting. And last but not least, let's narrow it even down. You don't even have to have a precise idea, because I do think that the first step is always the toughest one, and it's totally fine. I mean, when I joined Edmine, was in a very different place with creating presentation. Edmine just opened my eyes, but the precise idea is not necessary, I would say. I mean, we can start from scratch. I mean, it's good if you have your branding, it's good if you have some presentation guidelines. It's fine if you have some content, but again, we can help you basically with everything starting from scratch. So even though you don't have any idea on how your company presentation should look like, that's also fine. We can start from scratch, create some nice templates, create some nice guidelines, and then provide you, coming back to my very first statement, provide you with a tool, provide you with something that will help you, so you don't have to rely on, let's say, third parties. But that's, all these things are what you don't need, but of course there are a couple of things that I believe you would need, or it would help a lot. So a rough idea. I mean, that's something that Maciej told you at the very beginning, that there are certain things like, where do you plan to present, or what's the audience, maybe what's the key messaging, I mean, maybe what's the like the outcome, you want to sell something, or you maybe want to encourage people to do so, maybe some sort of internal meeting. I mean, all these things will help, and that's my personal view. Last but not least, a human touch. Again, AI is a cool tool, and there are like dozens of occasions when I do think that you might have a decent outcome, but I strongly believe that this human touch, and I also see those arguments quite often in some discussions, that this human touch and like this feeling of all these nuances of human psychology and interactions and communications is very important. And of course, this is like a very, very, very bad example. And this is rather good example. But what I do think that with a human, you can achieve a very, very, very highly visual outcome, especially when it comes to data visualization. So to sum up, like how...
But let me
Okay.
interrupt you for a second. So what about these all AI tools? I mean, they're getting more and more advanced. So you're claiming that we shouldn't trust them.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't trust them, because I would say that it will be unfair for my end, because I do think that they have a lot, especially on the first stage when we try to have some sort of an outline. But I do feel that they might struggle with, for instance, brand identity, with data visualization, with text visualization, I would say some illustrations, things like that. And I would still, that's my personal opinion, I would still, for a lot of purposes, especially when, you know, it's some sort of lead generation and things like that, I would still reach out to the professional agency. And I mean, Maciek, because I do think that you might use those tools more often as a, let's say, not a designer, but also as a user. What's your opinion on that? Like,
Yeah, I think they are great when you don't have time. When you don't have time to think, but you're losing
and you can, when you're not focused so much on the quality, probably.
On the quality and on the impact and on understanding of the whole story that you're trying to do. It's always better to have something than nothing. And it's always better to have this something generated in a consistent way. So if an AI tool makes a consistent slide deck, it's absolutely fine. You have more time than to do what I was talking about. Redesign these slides later on, rethink them, add this human touch later on to what was done. Because we need to understand artificial intelligence is not comparable to human intelligence in terms of searching for relations between symbols, meanings, and contexts that we do understand as people. It is a language model. And as a language model, it just creates a statistical summary of what would be the most probable outcome of generating this into that. But it's like with the image with bees and integration I have shown you. We see that there is possibly a way of thinking about bees working together in terms of human integration. It's not that clear to someone who is, or something that is not a human being. So this is the human touch that we need, some creativity, some personal additions, some personal issues that we want to relate to. And also, finally, it's about users. It's about user experiences. We need to have data from users using something that we want to present. We can't generate that.
I think that sometimes you just have 15 minutes. I mean, that's the event, you have 15 minutes, you're a panelist, and it's your chance. So I do think that sometimes a very high quality of the outcomes. And here is where that type of agency, Olga, as my client right now.
So what about, so imagine I got that help from you, and I have that perfect presentation I need for the conference I'm attending. So so what happens next? Can I get some further assistance, or will you help me to? Oh, Yeah.
I mean, personally, I would always help you, and in general, as a client, I would also help you. So it's not a surprise. We do presentations. I mean, as a presentation design team, we do presentations, but not only. I mean, we also do Word documents. We also do Excel files. We create, as I mentioned before, templates, so we can start from scratch with your identity. We can use, of course, what you have. Storytelling, something what Maciek told you, sales and marketing. So that was probably the most common answer in our poll. So sales and marketing, of course, we visualize data. We do quality assurance, so not only to write text, but we can also proofread text. Other things, we do support during events. Events are crazy. I mean, again,
can you, for example, like make a training with me to help me better align with my presentation, or?
Yeah, I can.
Maciek can. I maybe also,
Maciek also can.
But definitely like Maciek Kałuża would be a better choice here. We do trainings. That's probably the third time I'm talking about it, but I do find it very important that we love ensuring that people can really use all these things that we are doing for them in a way that they are independent and they are in the end happy with what we did for them. So yeah, correct.
I feel much more comfortable right now. Thanks for that.
Thank you. I mean,
It's a pleasure.
I do think that this whole world of PowerPoint and presentation design, it's super comprehensive because it's not only about the design, it's also about editing, copywriting, thinking, going through data.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what makes it super thrilling. And I love working with it.
Thank you for all your insights. And we have a quarter to the end of our meeting today, and we have a few very interesting questions. So let's skip to the questions right now. And if any of you have any further questions, please submit them right now. Okay, let's get to the question. The first one from Valdemar. How do you manage to maintain freshness and variety in your presentations? Since I create 2-3 presentations a week, I often fall into the trap of templates and find my presentations start to look alike, which becomes simply boring for me and consequently for the audience. So
Yeah,
what do you recommend?
It's a trap of our experience. Probably the audience will see the presentation only once, and we see them quite often, so we fall into this thing of a routine. But I think the more dangerous part of the question would refer to showing the audience the same stuff over and over again in the same form, and this will impact. For example, I said about adding images that it creates more retention. It's true that if you consequently make research, the retention will drop after some time because people get used to seeing images and they don't focus that much. They are just accustomed to seeing these images there. So yes, if we create a lot, it is quite easy to fall into a routine and just go by template and recreate the ideas. And I think what helps is that we are really living in a world of open sources and Instagram, and we have a lot of designers sharing their work, and we can get inspired by external people designing things in a different way. So it's like any kind of art, you get better not just by repeating what you do when you do it good. You get better by looking how others do it and practice and try to recreate the way they redesign templates and the way they redesign slides, which is completely different to what you would do. And this really helps, and this keeps me fresh, and it doesn't make me bored with what I do. seeing something I would have never thought can be presented in such a way. So I just store them, we share them, we have meetings with the team where we present new ideas, we go to trainings of other agencies to see how they approach problems in order just to be, better, more qualified in understanding how can we advise some people, because it's a very, very common question. Can we make it in a different way? Can we make it more impactful? Can we make it less dull? And we try to find something like that. So search for inspiration. It can be in other designers. It can be just by looking at design of your favorite artists, and you will find the answers there.
I hope you got some inspirations from today's presentations as well. So let's move to another question from Adam. What about the voice aspect in presentations? Pausing, changing the tone or the words that we are using in the presentations or speaking? Any suggestions in terms of providing either direct sales presentations at trade shows, or even internal team presentations? In my case, the subject of presentations is quite technical and typically performed to specialists in aviation industry. I would love to get more information about it. Can you guys address this one?
I don't know much of your technique, but I never loved learning by heart. I mean, I tried maybe once or twice, because that's something that sometimes you are teaching you during like school times, that it's good, you need to memorize. But in the end, I really struggled then, because I forgot some parts and I lost the vibe, I lost the flow. So I would say it's definitely about having an idea, maybe having a couple of anecdotes, maybe, and again, you will have presentations, so it will give you a structure, but definitely knowing what you would like to say, knowing what's the purpose, but not trying to memorize every single thing. If you forget about something, that's I think also fine, because in the end, probably all those most important things, like if it's technical data or maybe some key takeaways, that will be presented on a slide anyways.
But as Maciej Kałuża said, you also learn and memorize a lot while preparing the presentation. So maybe it's enough.
What's your technique, by the way, Maciej, when it comes, for instance, to voice intonation? Because I think that especially on a university, you have people listening to you, but not only to you, but also to 6 or 7 other tutors during that day.
Yeah, we are actually trained as academics in rhetorics and using speech during lectures. Mostly out of health and security issues, not to damage our throat too much while speaking. So how to emit voice and how to communicate in order not to harm yourself when you are talking for 90 minutes. But also how to develop the skill of not talking too fast and not talking too slow at the same time. So it's also about the pace, and it's also about pronunciation. It's also about being clear and being communicative. Regarding this question, when you have a specific audience and you think that this audience needs some special care and attention, I think the best advice is to ask them after each session what they liked, what they especially liked, what they didn't like. Ask them for feedback, and you will learn how to be more experienced in redesigning.
It's probably very hard to do it if you are using the presentations for your clients when you're selling some services.
Yes, but you will always get some feedback. I especially like this, I especially like that. I always look for feedback from my students, for example. They tell me all the time what they liked, what they didn't like, what more they wanted to have on the issue. So I learned by that. So design is not only about me inputting some pace, some speed and some images. It's also about hearing whether I'm not talking too loud or too fast, or whether they can clearly understand me. If I'm saying about something difficult, I slow down.
Hmm.
Simply.
Yeah, that's quite obvious.
That's what I
Yeah.
just try to remember
Yeah.
when I'm talking. And I try to control my voice, but I'm not thinking about it all the time
Hmm.
in order to focus more on the communication with my audience.
And to get that
Yeah.
more natural feeling during your presentation. Okay, let's move to the other questions because the time is almost out. From anonymous participants, do you give consultations to people who are creating a presentation at work and need advice on whether they are going in the right direction?
We do. I mean, not me personally, but Maciek. Maciek does.
And the rest of the team, probably. It's not only Maciek.
No, it's like a lot of great designers.
Yes, and I do think that we have meetings with clients quite often, and I do find that moment very important because we have this opportunity to, for instance, go through the presentation, and also sometimes is even like mutual knowledge sharing with sharing the screen, and you see how other people like approach some things. So there are two ways. One is definitely trainings, like the bigger one. That's something that for instance, Maciek, but not only Maciek, does in our team. And the second way is just via everyday cooperation.
Thanks. And we've got another question from Imra. Should always someone be creating slides? How to collaborate when it comes to work on a presentation together with other colleagues without knowledge of basic design principles?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because we frequently receive projects that are composed by whole marketing teams, for example. They divide the content into specific people trying to design content for specific slides. And it's always difficult because it actually turns out that it's more psychology related than design related. Because one person has a different vision or thinks of a different purpose or function of the presentation than the others. And you just see that it kind of doesn't work together. So I think what we try to focus on is how to find consistency, find this key message, find this crucial story, and dialogue with the people so that they understand what's the purpose, what's the target, and then design. Because they think in this non-storytelling way, they think that they need to design slides of a specific section that is in the agenda, and they don't know what is before and they don't know what is after. And so there is no story. There are just separate parts of the presentation created by people asked to do something, and it's quite difficult and challenging to create a presentation out of that, because in reality what we have is several presentations lumped together into one file. So it's challenging, but yeah, we have clients to achieve more consistency, not only with brand, with colors, but with the story they are trying to go with.
Thank you for that. We have a few more questions, but we missed the context, so we are not able to answer them probably. Or Dominika Jasińska, if you're still here, could you type the context of your question, or you can also contact us later. So we are getting to the finish of today's session. So again, thank you all for attending this webinar. We all hope it was valuable, and that you will be able to apply those tips and techniques in your own presentations. And remember that whether you're a manager, human resources professional, or academic, the ability to create engaging presentations can significantly impact your success. And if you have any further questions, Dominika Jasińska, we have 3 more minutes, so let's get back to the questions. What are the good knowledge sources for beginners that want to develop the skill of making good enough presentations? Good books, online courses? This is one of them, actually, in brief.
I think there are dozens. I mean, even on YouTube, even I saw even like Instagram Reels connected to presentation design, so you can really like just scroll down, armchair, and just go through. Really, there are so many various sources right now. I would recommend going to YouTube because for me personally, no matter if it's PowerPoint or Photoshop, there are dozens of tricks and tips for free. So I would definitely go there. But I would start with basics. I mean, what really helped me is just understand PowerPoint as a tool and understand all nice quick fixes, nice tips and tricks, shortcuts, all options that will be helpful. Because then just going through some inspirations and trying to mimicate them, it's not that tough, and it would help.
Yeah.
So, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, it's a technical answer, and I fully agree. There is more literature apart from just looking, because it's much more clear when you're just looking at someone clicking in PowerPoint what to do next. But presentation and design is broader. As I told you, it's about being in a conference room or during a sales meeting on Teams, and it's about being a presenter. And I have a very good book to recommend to Dominika, and I will just type it after the meeting to the chat, where the trainer really does this more psychological, more rhetorical part also in detail. So it's in English, and I really enjoyed reading it. So I will fully recommend that book after the webinar.
Great.
The chat.
I would also be interested in knowing that. So if you have any further questions or would like to get more information about how we work or how we could help you, actually, please feel free to reach out, and have a great day. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar, probably in September, and we will focus on AI in brand management this time. So let's keep in touch, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for the great conversation. It was a pleasure to be here with
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.